Did you know you could shop around for prescription prices? With GoodRx, you can find free coupons at over 70,000 pharmacies and save up to 80%. It's that easy. But don't just take my word for it. Dr. Adam says, I've been telling all my patients about GoodRx. Jacqueline says, my medication was $65 without insurance, but I paid $25. Aubriana says, you don't have to pay full price to live your best life. Couldn't have said it better myself. GoodRx is 100% free. Download the GoodRx app today and start saving. GoodRx is not insurance.
All right, it's time for another film study. We get to break down the offense of the Week 16 game against the Giants. Ken McKusick, how you doing?
Life's good, Josh. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain. All right, this is our last offensive podcast of the year. So
no, it's not. We have a Week 17 game against Cincinnati. We'll do an offensive podcast for.
Yeah, but Ken, that's in 2021.
Oh, you're a clever dude. Clever.
I'm not saying season. I'm focused on the year. Everything we do this week is the last of the year.
And my life runs off the football year, which ends in February. So,
all right. Yeah, some people follow a fiscal calendar or quarterly calendar. You follow the football calendar.
There you go.
All right, so your year doesn't end yet. Joining us, this guy's done a short with us. It's cool to have him now for the full episode.
I'm doing great.
Ed, how you doing?
How are you guys doing?
Life's good. Can't complain at all, Ed. Glad to have you back on. You know, wonderful short on target allocation for the Ravens, where I think we both went a little too high on Miles Boykin for the year in terms of how many targets he get. We won't beat ourselves up over that too much. Let's just move it. I don't know about you, watching this game this last week, one of the things that really struck me was how little profanity I had on the opening drive. It was literally a profanity-free opening drive. That's very difficult for me. You have kids, you may have to clean up your act. I don't, and therefore I don't. So
yeah, for this game, I was very I got the DirecTV, so I'm flipping through channels, watching some of the Steelers game, watching some. It was an interesting experience, but it was awesome game. So pumped. I'm yelling upstairs. My kid's everything okay up there? And I'm yeah, it's good. It's good.
Very much a win by the 2019 formula. They got the lead with the offense. They dominated the first half in terms of time of possession, in terms of snap count, very important, obviously. And even though the Giants had lots of opportunities in that first half to throw the football, we talked a lot about that on the defensive pod, 11 ATS opportunities on just 13 dropbacks in the first half. They really didn't make anything out of that. And the Ravens won by their traditional formula, getting ahead, letting that defense take over the game in the second half.
Yes, I'm not sure what the changes are that precipitated them kind of getting back to what they do, but it was awesome to see. I mean, they mold what is a good run defense, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm. That's been kind of a hallmark this year is it doesn't matter how good the run defense is. Try to stop the Ravens' run offense is a different animal. And the Steelers weren't able to do it, and they were one of the best run defenses of them all. And the Ravens ran for, 265 or so in the first game and another big one in the second game too. So even without anybody, they ran for over 100 yards. We'll let Josh do a little business now. We'll be back to discuss the offensive line.
All right, it's MyBookie. You know it. The code is Ravens. That's how you get your 50% match. So if you put in $200, they give you a free $100 to work with. MyBookie's constantly giving away free bets, so you want to go in and check it every day. If you want to make some money this weekend on the Ravens, they are minus 13 is the spread right now for the Ravens going into Sunday at 1 o'clock when they face the Bengals. So head on over to MyBookie, use the code Ravens, and get yourself that free money because it's not just winter season, it's winning season. So bet, win, and get paid with MyBookie.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the offensive line in this game. Actually, you know what? There's one thing I want to hit before. Waiver transactions came out today, and Jaron Kearse of Detroit had been released yesterday. Geno Stone was released today, and yet the Ravens, or yesterday also, I think. Yeah, I may have the day wrong. It may have been yesterday. But they did not make a waiver claim on Jaron Kearse, which was a little surprising. In fact, he passed through entirely on the waiver system. is now available to sign for any team. And it's not like he had a big contract. He was only at $1.5 million. Fourth-year player, well above the replacement level. 6'4", 215, so very unusual size for a safety. And the Ravens made no attempt to get him, despite the fact they really have been playing without a dime back the entire season.
Yes, that's a bit surprising, and I'm also was thinking about different ways they could use a player like that, and you would think that based on Peters being hurt and the other injuries in the secondary, that he might be somebody we could consider.
Yeah, and with the teams they'll face in the playoffs, he's at that height. You always talk about your safeties being too small to be covered by a safety. Sorry, a safety being too small to cover a big tight end. This guy's not too small to cover anybody. So he might not be fast enough. I really don't know enough about him as a player, but generally the rankings he's gotten from PFF have been quite good. People have said good things about him. The Vikings fans were upset to lose him, but when he went to Detroit, he's not making a lot of money, $1.5 million. So the 1 game commitment to him was only 1/17 of $1.5 million, under 100,000. So I don't think it was a money issue. I think they didn't like something about the reasoning or the explanation behind his release from Detroit. Kind of sad to see, because the Ravens really need to find another safety who can cover. All right, let's move on. Let's talk some offensive line while we're here. And I know we got you for the offense, and we want to make sure we deliver on that promise as well. Good day overall for the offensive line, led to some very good grades. So 64 scored snaps, 0 sacks, 3.67. That's 3 2/3 of the 4 quarterback hits were charged to the line. We had 1/3 of one I charged to Lamar directly for holding the ball too long. It was really more like a pressure with the extra -1 coming from Lamar holding the ball too long. 3 pressures in 25 dropbacks. The spike is excluded from that. Lamar ran out of 2 pressures in this game. He's been helping the offensive line a lot so far this year by running out of pressures with positive scrambles that actually help the offensive line in my scoring system. All right, we'll continue on. Ample time and space, 11 out of 27, 44% of the passes resulting in a pass or sack. That is high, one of the highest numbers of the year. 5 ball out quicks, 9 pressures. Good, solid opportunity set for Jackson to throw. There were no runs for loss, charged the offensive line, and big deal, there were no penalties. So they got through a week, and they've been doing very good low penalty football. McCary had a couple penalties last couple of weeks, but he didn't this week, and nobody did. So good all-around play, led to some very good scores we're going to get into. Any other general impressions of the line you want to share, Ed?
Just that the line's been playing well. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I think you and I both were worried about the right tackle spot and how thin they were, and I'm very impressed with how they've been able to shuffle different players on the line. I mean, like, there was a game when they had McCary at right tackle, so I'm thoroughly impressed, because I thought that they were in deep trouble when Stanley went down and Brown had to move over. I thought, what are you going to do at right tackle?
Yeah, I wasn't even convinced Brown would be acceptable at left tackle, but he's been more than acceptable. He's been terrific. But at right tackle, honestly, DJ Fluker, with the exception of about 1.5 games, has been very good. They had McCary play 1 good half over there. They had Will Holden play 1 good half. I know you were playing the Red Zone or Move Around on DirecTV's Sunday Ticket. You might have noticed that Will Holden was the starting left tackle for the Indianapolis Colts this week.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, a lot of the Ravens rejects are still getting played other places. And honestly, in the Holden case, I think it was a case of the Ravens took the depth they had a little too lightly and valued their interior depth perhaps a little bit too much. And that might have cost them a tackle where they're actually, I think, very shorthanded at this point. All right, let's move on. Orlando Brown, he had played a rotation of extremely weak pass rushers for the Giants. 0 pass rush events allowed, though. That's the big number for Orlando this week. He did have one time where it would have been a pressure, but Lamar ran out of it for a 7-yard scramble. So he got 0 pressures for the day, 6 missed blocks. One of the places his missed blocks are showing up are on the myriad of counter plays they're not running. So you'll see them on TV, look for the left guard and left tackle to pull on the same play to the right, and that tells you absolutely nothing about where the ball is going in the Ravens offense. They might run up the middle, they might run left, and they might run right. behind that. But it's the great thing about it is if they run right, it becomes a power run, and otherwise it's a very deceptive run.
On the first play of the game, like I thought it had a good kind of statement, like you don't know what we're doing, because I felt like it was, I think Powers pulled to the left and then Fluker pulled to the right, and then the play went to J.K. Dobbins going left, and then Lamar followed the fake going right, and it's like that's a lot of backfield motion for people to deal with, and
Yes.
it makes me think of I read it on Smart Football, but like a couple, like maybe 4 or 5 days ago, where it said if you want to do play action, pull a guard, and
Yeah.
then that's what I thought in that first play. There's so much action going on; it has to be a lot for the defenses to keep their eyes on.
Well, the Ravens, they pull at such a high percentage of plays. I mean, in this game alone, I'll go through this. Brown pulled 8 times, Bozeman 18, McCary 5. He didn't even play that long. We had 7 from Powers, 3 from Fluker, 1 from Phillips, and 1 from Skura. That is an unbelievable array of pulls for one football game. It might be the most I've ever scored. I know I have scored more at left guard than 18, but that's right up there near the highest number ever. And you're right, that first play where they're pulling in 2 directions, the Ravens are basically with a scripted play, middle fingering the Giants because they're basically saying, you can't figure us out. I mean, that's exactly what they're telling them with that pull in opposite direction. So, yeah, I love that play too. Talk a little bit more about Brown. He's having a little bit of trouble making contributions on the backside of run plays, but otherwise, I love everything he's doing. And if you can have 0 pass rush events at left tackle, I don't really care what you do against the run. That's generally going to be an A, and that's what he got in this game. Bozeman played reasonably well against a much tougher set of interior defenders. That's where the Giants' strength really is. Their edge guys kind of suck. Their interior guys include Leonard Williams, a former first-round draft pick, who's terrific, and who's the guy? Dexter, number 97. I got to bring this up, or I will not have the right people here. Dexter Lawrence on the interior. Those are 2 of their really good players, and Bozeman had to face a lot of them. He gave up a pressure 1/3 share of 2 separate QHs. He had 5 missed blocks, but the big thing with Bozeman is always, how's he doing on his pull blocks? He went 14 of 18 in this game. That was good, and the Giants tried something different that you may have noticed. They were trying to cut the pulling players. No other team has really tried that so far this year. The Giants were relentless about it. They basically would go down in the face of a puller and try and go to the puller's knees. I believe that may actually be not allowed by NFL rules, which is something I need to check. I mean, the point is made by Coach Evans often that it's not allowed at the high school level.
Yeah. And I wonder if that has to do with, because back in the day, like Gibbs would have his zone blockers cut block, and then I think that became a penalty. So I'm guessing it's the same on both sides.
Yeah, so it used to be that adjacent players on the offensive line were allowed to block high and low on the same player. It wasn't a chop block. And now they cut that out. So the defensive players have the same sort of protections that the offensive have. So the offensive players you can't go high low on an offensive player either. But on pulls, I believe they're specifically precluded from having cuts go into them. They're supposed to not allow that. And the Giants were relentless about it. They went to the knees play after play, including an unbelievably good play from, it was number 55 for the Giants on the right side, Mayo, who's not a particularly great player. Okay, David Mayo, but he went to the knees and took down both Bozeman and Brown on one pull. And we had a little talk about this on the defensive show with Michael Crawford. That reminded me of Terrell Suggs. All right, let's move on here. Bozeman got a B in the game. McCary played 23 blocks before he was hurt, made 21 of 23 blocks. No negative events in the game, A for him. Skura, in relief of him, surrendered parts of 3 quarterback hits. Didn't have a great time, didn't have an easy time holding off those very large interior players, but the bigger problem was the snap yips still seem to be there.
Yep, like I think the very first snap he was in, he kind of snapped it high into the right of Lamar, but Lamar just kind of like grabbed it and was able to manage. But I was like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know who's a great defensive catcher. In my era, it would probably been Tony Pena. If I say Tony Pena on the air today, nobody knows who I'm talking about. But Rick Dempsey maybe as a ball, a guy who had good range behind the plate to get to some of these off target wild pitches, and did a good job with them. But anyway, Skura had a pretty good game as a blocker, not terrible anyway. A C- game overall. I took his adjustment away because of the snap problems. Otherwise, he would have scored a C. Powers, 1.5 pressures, a third of a quarterback hit, 6 missed blocks. Not Powers' best game. He continues on not having any penalties, but a C only in the game with the various events he had. Anything to say about Ben Powers' play this last few weeks?
I'm generally a fan of Powers. I'm glad to see someone step into that guard spot. I was worried about Phillips in there. I think now Phillips is kind of messing around on the right. So I mean, I'm not great with the O line, but I feel like Powers is a good guard.
They seem to have found their 5 guys, and I say that with my fingers crossed now with the injury to McCary, not knowing how serious it is, not knowing if he's going to be back against Cincinnati or even for the playoffs. But that group of 5 with McCary snapping the football seems to be a group of 5 they trust. If they don't, I really wonder whether after this game they're not going to activate TCC, Colon Castillo, for the week 17 and reinstall him at center. I think they would rather reduce the mistakes, even if it means they're getting a blocker who's maybe just a cut below, to not have mistakes possibly turn a game over to Cincinnati that they'd otherwise have a lot of trouble losing.
Right. And I thought that Tristan was a Cologne Castillo. I
Yes.
thought that he was good in the game that he played. So would you put him in at center over, I guess, moving Bozeman would shuffle it too much?
I wouldn't move Bozeman because he's too critical to the power run game. He drives all the pulling and he's really good at it. And I think all of the notion of moving Bozeman to center, I think with the season he's had and he's been very consistent, I don't think they'll move him. I don't think they'll move him next year.
Okay.
I think they'll decide if Bredesen is the right guy at center, perhaps next year. I don't think they'll decide if Bredesen is the right guy at center next week. I think that's more likely to be Colon Castillo if it is not McCary.
Right. And I haven't heard much about Makari's injury, so I'm hoping that he can still go.
Yeah, so that obviously is plan A, but if it doesn't work out, it's a back injury, so it's one of these things you really don't know. If there was some specificity to it, like it was a knee, or if it were any kind of a tarsal problem or whatever, we would question, whether he could be back or not. But as a back injury, we just don't have a lot to go on. Fluker had some back problems; he did have to sit out some time, but I don't really have a good sense of whether or not McCary might be back. All right, let's continue on. Fluker, very good at right tackle in this game. He played 50 of the snaps, and they had one overlapping snap on the goal line where the Ravens actually played a 7-man line, I think for the first time this year. They played 19 other snaps of 6-man line in this game, which is their most of the year. That's just a remarkable total. But Fluker was very good in his 50 snaps. 1 quarterback hit allowed. He missed 3 blocks, but otherwise he was perfect. And that's a hell of a job from a right tackle. One of the things about it that I keep harping on, perhaps unfairly, is that Lamar really makes any tackles and probably really any lineman's job easier by freezing those edge defenders, and also the scheme allowing a lot of Fluker's basic blocks to be down blocks on the defensive tackle to help on a double team with Powers.
Oh yeah, I think like something that the stats miss is what you're talking about. There is Lamar's ability to increase the O line's efficiency by the down blocks, by the edge, and also on plays where they just don't even block the read defender.
Yeah.
So I think Lamar definitely does a lot to help the line. And if I could to go back on some of the high numbers of um, like the Skura playing tight end and the high numbers of extra linemen. You think is that specifically for the Giants, or is that something that we can see going forward? Because the offense that we saw against the Giants is an offense that I would love to see from here
Yeah.
on out.
It's a hell of an offense, that's for sure. I think there's a couple things going on. I'll give you my theory on it, and then I'd love to hear yours, Ed. But the first thing I'd say is that with the loss of Boyle, it's almost like Roman does not know how to scheme for that extra position. It's an eligible receiver, but he'd really like to have a blocker. And Boyle was perfect because he was both. And now the other guy who's played very well is Tomlinson. So Tomlinson had just an unbelievable game blocking, this time block after block, where he looked like Nick Boyle. And he actually had that nice, what do we call it, clear out route that made Des Bryant wide open because everybody followed him. I don't know why. He's Eric Tomlinson, but they all did. He's almost otherwise never used in a pattern.
Yep.
And then you go to the other things. He also uses alignment in that same spot. So Boyle's missing. Boyles was playing 75% of the snaps before he was hurt. So he gives 20 of them, which is not quite a third to a sixth offensive lineman. He gives, I don't know what it was, 18 maybe to Tomlinson. He beefs up Ricard snaps by a couple, and he also played 4 pony backfields. But it's a whole bunch of different solutions, none of which involve an extra receiver.
Right. And I wonder if not having Boyle is forcing him to be more creative, because some of and maybe we'll get into this later on, but the pony backfields, I've been seeing more of that, and I think it's an incredible package that he could expand on. Earlier, I've seen different teams use it, like the Packers have done some with it, the Browns have done some with it, and I think our backs can do it just as well, or if not better than other teams. So when I see that backfield, I'm very excited. Like that pony backfield together with a spread formation, and sometimes they used Tomlinson as a like a slot wide receiver in their like doubles spread formations, which worked there too.
Yeah, so if you use Tomlinson there and use any sort of jet motion, it really gives you a blocker out in front of a jet play, which I really love.
Oh yeah,
You can also put Boykin on the same side if you want to, and still make that work. You have to go without an inline tight end if you do that.
right.
But or your inline tight end just has to be on the end. But either way you go. Completely agree with the other teams using it. The Redskins also used it pretty effectively, I thought, against the Ravens in their game. They had McKusick, and who's the other guy? Gardner, the rookie who's good in the backfield, who's not McKusick. I'm missing the name.
Danny Golden or something.
I'm thinking it's Gardner, but I might be wrong. Anyway, let's not worry about it.
Right.
They certainly had a second back set, and they like to have a back lined up as a receiver. The Ravens actually haven't used too much of the back staying at receiver. Occasionally they will, but most of the time it's a back that motions in and at least threatens that jet action and then allows Lamar to get an extra read on the defense while he's doing it.
I lost.
All right. So I think we talked a little about Fluker. You're back. I'm back. Okay. So Fluker, a B+ in the game. We got great. Okay. Phillips, 15 scored snaps as a backup, 12 points in this game. That's a lot better than he had been playing. Very happy to see it. No grade in this game because he's under 20 snaps, but it's good to see Phillips play some decent right tackle.
Our biggest storage event just got stronger. The Store More, Save More event going on now at the Home Depot. Get exclusive HDX black and yellow Tough Totes starting at just $4.98. They're heavy duty, durable, and come in a range of sizes from 7 to 70 gallons. So whether you need to store a little or store a lot, you're going to save loads. Make room for big savings at the Store More, Save More event going on now at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Limited time only. Event and dates vary by store. See store for details.
Who are you texting?
My therapist.
You text with your therapist?
Text, video chat, call. Yep.
That sounds too easy. How did you find her?
I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable.
I wonder if I should try it.
It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save.
Betterhelp.com/save. Got it.
Anyway, not sure where Phillips ends up. Where do you think he ends up?
I think like I'm kind of two opinions about this. I want him to succeed at right tackle, but he hasn't looked like he can succeed at right tackle. But it's early, and he's a young player. Um, and then maybe I want him to succeed because I know that we're thin there, but I feel like he needs more time, and he has more to work on to be effective at right tackle. And I think that he can be effective at right guard sooner than he could be at right tackle. But I wouldn't give. I would kind of still keep him and try to develop him as a swing player for both.
I'm looking at Phillips' body shape for starters. He is in way better shape right now than he was at Mississippi State. He's a big guy carrying a lot of extra midsection weight when he played left tackle at Mississippi State. And he had definitely some issues with his feet in pass blocking, but he had those great lock-on long arms I love in any offensive lineman, but I especially love him at a tackle. I like the arm length. It's be a good opportunity for positional coaching between year one and year two for him, and also for him to go on kind of the Ryan Jensen routine of really resculpting his body to not just lose some of that extra chunkage around his midsection, but also to just resculpt his body and get muscle, build up his leg strength more, and build up his upper body strength more, because I think he's going to need all of that. I don't think he's as naturally gifted with his feet as even an Orlando Brown is. And that's going to make it a little harder for him to play that position.
Yeah. I kind of still have a little bit of hope for him because I feel like how kind of people viewed Orlando Brown as a right tackle only, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then he's transferred over and done a good job at left tackle. So I'm hoping, I'm an optimist. So I'm hoping that Phillips still has a chance to grow into that right tackle spot.
Yeah, I'm a worrier, but I also consider myself an optimist, Ed. And I don't know if anyone watching a game would naturally assume I am that way, but I kind of consider myself that anyway. And I would love to believe that he could really take the time. But I think this is a case of a young player really needs to figure out how critical it is right now for him to invest in himself so that he gets that second contract. He needs to start right away. Can't wait till year 3 to do this. This is a year 1 to year 2 project. Fluker is not signed for next year. The job will be open next year. The Ravens will make choices about whether or not to sign or trade Orlando Brown. They need to know immediately in 2021 whether or not Phillips is the guy going forward.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. Anything else we haven't talked about? Bredesen made 9 of 11 blocks as a 6th offensive lineman. That was solid. I think we covered all this other stuff about McCary and TCC, so let's move on. To talk about Lamar a little bit?
Oh, yeah. The man, the myth, the legend.
Why don't you start us off here with your thoughts on Lamar, and then I'll add mine as we go through.
Okay, so I'm originally not a Ravens fan. So I grew up in this area, and for a while we didn't have a team. So I was a fan of Washington, and then I couldn't. Long story short, I just couldn't. I didn't want to deal with an owner like Dan Snyder. So I was like, I kind of just took a step back from football as in general. But I live in Baltimore, so I always watch the Ravens games. But I used to watch a lot of college football, and I watched a lot of Lamar Jackson at Louisville. And I think it was his game against Florida State. Like you know how there's some games you watch of a college player and it makes you go wow. Like it happened with I know people are going to say whatever, but anyway, it happened with Johnny Manziel versus Bama. It happened with Cam Newton versus like they have that game where you're like, this guy's got something. So anyway, so I started watch a lot of Louisville with Lamar and fell in love with him. And when the Ravens drafted him, I couldn't believe it. I was like, my favorite college player got drafted to my hometown team. So yeah, so I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan, and I think he has Super Bowl winning potential, and and in my heart of hearts, I think that if he reaches his maximum of his abilities, then I think he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, well, I guess it's easy to say that because he already won the MVP, but
Yes.
but I think that if he's developed hard through the fundamentals of passing, I think he can get there. And looking at Louisville, like, people say whatever they want about Petrino, but Petrino coaches pro style concepts, and Lamar back then, um, I feel like his timing and his footwork and a rhythm drop back passing game was what drew me to him. He was a guy who could sit in the pocket, make a 3-step drop, throw on time, 5-step drop, throw on time, read coverage, but he was also this dynamic runner. So, my opinion of Lamar is like sky high.
Okay, what's impressed me so much about Lamar, this is not just in recent weeks, but it's been rekindled from recent weeks because it was mostly last year that we saw this, is an ability to effortlessly negotiate the pocket while keeping his eyes downfield. The guy is just always on his own terms in the pocket, always rolling right or left, and he can make a throw in either direction. I mean, normally a right-handed quarterback rolls left, the play is dead. You hope it's not interception. That's the main thing you hope for. With Lamar, he can roll right or left, get his body turned in time, or make a run out of it. The gravitational effect is something Jonas Schaefer has talked about in terms of what Lamar Jackson does to defenses. We saw that on the 44-yard touchdown to Brown on 4th and 5. The entire defense is just drawn to him, and it creates these wonderful man or zone dilemmas for the opposite defensive coordinator. It is so much fun to watch him. If you're not appreciating Lamar Jackson for who he is, if you're whining about him not being 10% a better passer, that'll come in time. He'll become a better passer, and he'll also lose something as a runner, by the way. But appreciate who he is right now, because he's one hell of a football player, and he might be the best quarterback in the National Football League these last 4 weeks. It's just, he's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch.
I want to pull this quote up, and this is from Bill Walsh, and this is what I think of when I see Lamar, and it says, the single trait that separates great quarterbacks from good quarterbacks is the ability to make the great spontaneous decision, especially at a crucial time. The clock is running down, your team is behind 5 points. The play that was called has broken down, and 22 players are moving in an almost unpredictable direction all over the field. This is where the great quarterback uses his experience, vision, mobility, and what we will call spontaneous genius. He makes something good happen. And then that's what I see from him, like down after down. Like, and you mentioned like the plays moving to the left, and I played a little bit of like rec QB, and it's when I see him do it, like he threw that one to Bryant rolling to his right. I think in previous games he threw a phenomenal one against the Redskins to Andrews rolling to his left. I mean,
Yes.
it's some of he makes extraordinary plays look routine, like regularly.
And those are unbelievable plays. When a quarterback completes any kind of a long pass, any kind of a touch pass, any kind of any pass, frankly, when rolling left under pressure, it's a remarkable throw. They got a set of rules that go when a quarterback rolls right, so the defense knows how to play that. Those break down against Lamar, and the Ravens actually have a better chance when he rolls right. I still don't like it that much, because as soon as he leaves the pocket, I think he's restricting the amount of field that the defense has to defend, which is Lamar's greatest asset. But when he does roll right, his gravitational pull takes in those close defenders. If that 4th and 5 play would have happened, and Joe Flacco was the quarterback. And I'm not trying to beat on Joe Flacco. I'm just trying to tell you the difference between a normal pocket passer and Lamar. Joe Flacco might also have rolled right, but only one defender would have come after him. That would have been enough to pressure him. He would have had to put the ball up, and maybe Brown catches it. Maybe he doesn't, because you don't know under pressure if that goal is going to be on target, and also who's going to be covering that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All right. What else have been growing up? The other thing I've loved about Lamar is the reduction in interceptable balls the last few weeks. Now, I heard a stat on Twitter that Patrick Mahomes has 15 dropped interceptions this year, which is one of the highest totals they've ever charted. Might be the highest, and it was going back some certain number of years. It's not forever, but it was maybe 2010 or something, or 2007 they were talking about. Still, that's remarkable that it would be Patrick Mahomes with the most of those. Lamar's really cut down on the interceptable balls.
That stat doesn't surprise me because I used to watch Mahomes at Texas Tech, and he was a wild stallion back then. Like there wasn't a throw that he didn't like or think that he could make. So so
Mhm.
yep. So like
Brett Favre.
that stat doesn't surprise me. Like one aspect of him not playing his rookie year, I think was brilliant from Reed because I think that he really needed to be kind of like the Bucky Bronco, and I think that that's helped him. Um,
Yeah, they haven't had to break down who he is from a throwing mechanics perspective. He's been able to use all that at the NFL level very effectively. They just
yep,
have cut
the
down on some of the
decision
bad
making
throws, I
throws
guess.
are some of the things that he wanted to work on. And I'm not sure if this is the spot to hop into this, but what do you think of Lamar's footwork?
I'm really not a technical footwork guy. So there's certain things I look for on film, like don't let your heels click together, that sort of thing as you're dropping back. A lot of it, I mean, I'm so amazed by his pocket presence and his ability to negotiate even a tight pocket that I'm not lost in the footwork itself. He steps into throws still fairly well, as far as I can tell. Other people, Orlovsky and other quarterback gurus out there, a guy like Mark Schofield would be much better at picking up on what's being wrong with
So,
people's
like,
footwork as he's going. But
I
what are your
think
thoughts?
one of the issues that I was having this year was I feel like Lamar's and then not I'm not talking about like his weight transfer because he always kind of ends up having decent weight transfer, but I'm talking about like the discipline on getting the ball out at the top of his drop off of like a 3-step timing or 5-step timing. But over the past few weeks, I feel like they've taken those plays that require like like a rote 3-step drop, hitch and throw. They've taken those out and kind of allowed him to move the pocket a little bit and just find a rhythm and throw on balance with a defined read as opposed to 3-step or 5-step, read it, hitch and throw. And I think that's smart on Greg's point and on the QB coach Urban, but I'm also kind of worried about his development in that sense because his QB coach Josh Harris, I was listening to him on 105.7, I think, and he was mentioning how he's noticed that Lamar's kind of not quite taking a step back, but he's kind of he called it like Lamar's playing in survival mode. Like he's kind of not so worried about, do I take a 3-step and hitch here? He's kind of like seeing the field and then finding his own rhythm to establish a balanced throw. So I kind of wonder about where he's going in that aspect with his footwork, but I like the changes Greg has made to make the play call not so much requiring those type of drops. If that makes sense, I tried to.
No, that's fantastic observation. Fantastic observation. And it's one of those things that he may have to relearn how to play
Yep.
quarterback when he goes to Josh Harris over the offseason, and then relearn how to take his steps naturally in the pocket. But right now, for one thing, whatever is working now is what they should continue with. I don't think another team is going to be able to easily break it down the way Jackson is having such
Yep.
success with things and is so feeling it right now.
Yep.
Whatever they're doing, don't try and change it this regular season, please, or this postseason. This offseason, take a look at it. Decide if it really needs to be changed. I mean, a lot of baseball hitters had unorthodox stances, and people
Right.
tried to fix them, and it didn't help at all. A lot of times, it's just allow the hitter to be comfortable in the box, however he wants to hit, whatever timing mechanism he's using, just let him do it. And I think it's not like an offensive lineman who's crossing his feet, where the defender immediately can take advantage of that and throw him off, throw him down. It's more of a subtle thing that Lamar has footwork issues or read issues that are not directly in sync with his footwork, if anything. And for that, please don't try and fix it this year, is all I got to say. All right. Peaking at the right time. I think we agree on that for Lamar. Let's move on to the scheme the Ravens had. And I'll let you start the scheme stuff again
Okay,
because
so
I have some notes here, but I want to hear what you have to say.
some of the things I noticed from this game is I felt like there was a good variety of the way the Ravens are going to attack people. Um, they had a very smash mouth element to it. Like I felt like they made it almost like, we're going to bring out our five linemen, Ricard, and we'll bring in extra lineman, and we'll see if you can stop it. So I kind of feel like they're embracing that. Hey, we're a smash mouth running team, and if you're a good run defense, we're gonna make you prove it. And that aspect of it, I like, and I hope that they stick to their guns. Like, because the Titans game was always in the back of my mind. Like, we don't have to be pass heavy at all. Like, we can dictate. I'm using we now. um, we can dictate what the offense or what the defense does by
Mhm.
what they do. So I definitely like seeing that. Um, like we talked about earlier. I love the pony backfields, and I really like. And maybe it's a coincidence because Gus is getting more playing time, but I feel like Gus has really proven, or he's proving, or flashing that he can actually catch. And and maybe I'm overvaluing the a couple or three catches, but the catch he had on the right sideline. I don't remember I don't have the timestamp, but
Mhm.
yep, and
No,
and
that's
so
okay. The
so there's
big
that
run
one
after
too.
catch.
But like there's one where Lamar's kind of scrambling to the right, and he throws it towards like maybe 15 yards down the right sideline, and Gus kind of has to extend his hands for it, and then he comes down, and that to me, like, that's a wide receiver quality catch. So um so I like seeing the pony backfield, and I hope that that's something that gets expanded on going forward.
So let me go to the Edwards thing here because I really want to respond to that. The play that shocked me, and Maureen and I watching the game and we're charting it and like, how the hell did that happen? Edwards getting over deep down the middle of the field for that catch in the
Oh, yep,
previous game. Was it against the Giants or was it against Jacksonville? I think it was against Jacks,
yep,
but it was deep down the middle of the field. And I'm like, we never have a running back run a deep route like that. That's Joe Washington stuff. That's something from the 70s Colts we would see. But the Ravens really have never had a
yep,
guy who made receptions deep downfield like that. Even Ray
yep.
Rice would run an occasional wheel route, but down the middle of the field, that's unheard of. So anyway, Edwards is obviously being a bigger back helps him be a bigger body, but that's also, there's a degree of trust that goes with that throw
Absolutely.
that Lamar said, boy, I trust Edwards to go get that football. And then the one on the right sideline I want to go back to also is he really, he looked like Marshawn Lynch,
Oh,
not being willing to be tackled along that right sideline. It was at a point in the game where the Giants had probably lost their will to tackle to a certain degree, but it was still very impressive.
yeah, yep. So
What else you got for us?
I like the use of spread, even from 22 personnel. Like sometimes they will put Tomlinson out there, sometimes they will put Andrews out there, and there's scheme elements that from this game that I hope to see carried on for the rest of the our playoff run. And I shouldn't assume that we're in the playoffs but I mean, come on, we're gonna crush the Bengals.
Either way, it's okay to talk about that because this next week is a playoff game, and
Yep.
they need to treat it as such. They need to win it as such, and in so doing, from a personnel standpoint, they can't afford to look forward only to that game, even if they need to coach only for that game. From a personnel standpoint, they need to be figuring out who that next cornerback is that they're going to get to come in and play against that Pittsburgh 4 wide receiver formation, or they're
Yep.
going to have completely missed the boat on the season and put it at risk.
Yep.
But I love the spread as well. I love what Tomlinson did. Was he did much more than what we thought he could do. In a lot of ways, you put him out there. I didn't think you lose any of the quickness or extension or balance that Boykin gives you as a run blocker. And Boykin is just off the charts good in my book. But Tomlinson was very good. He was good in line. He was good out in space, and did a really good job of just of getting in front of plays and making sure those extra yards were achieved.
Yep. And that's basically it for my game specific scheme notes. Um, I'm not sure if we have a chance to just kind of take it off here. Like I feel like the future of the Ravens offense. I wonder now that we don't have Boyle, um, if the spread is kind of where we're going to evolve to. But I think it would be cool to see a Baylor-esque spread to run type of offense going forward. But
So that'd be doing that out of 11 personnel, or you'd really be doing it out of 12 probably, but with a tight end split wide, right?
Mhm.
Or you could even do it out of 21 with a tight end split wide too, if you wanted to do that, or pony with a tight end split
Yep.
wide. All those
Yep.
are cool. It's, what's good about this is because the Ravens are a one-dimensional, not a one-dimensional offense, that's the wrong way to put it. They're a run-heavy offense. Roman has to be consistently evolving. And for Lamar's rookie year, when the pass wasn't that much of an option, he did a wonderful job of creating this entire lengthy playbook of new stuff they would try every week. And then in 2019, the passing game was folded in, but they also still had new run stuff as well. And this year, I feel like a lot of the things they've done, the heavy reliance on counter and some of the new pony backfield stuff, the increased reliance on six-man line, all of that is additional new Roman schemes. So as long as he can still be clever, that's great. And talking about the spread and finding ways to run out of that would also be cool. I do think having Tomlinson split wide is kind of a tell on a run play, but that may be exactly what they want. That you got the way you counter that is to have Jackson going in the other direction personally.
Mm-hmm.
So you have options still to make it look otherwise.
And I will say, one thing about the scheme that that has me a little bit worried is when teams are able to kind of stifle the run, by putting a speed element in a linebacker, or they just completely take out that linebacker and put in the safety, and then they can kind of like play 8 in the box, cover 1, or cover 3, and then force Lamar to throw to the outsides. I still don't feel as confident that we can beat teams that way. And so that's always in the back of my mind. Like I wish that the outside, the numbers, and deep, on the on outside the numbers passing game was more developed. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're able to establish this type of run, then I think they won't be in that position where the defenses are dictating where they can throw the ball.
So obviously there's 3 players who are very key to the deep outside the numbers passing game being a big deal. One is they can get it by having Miles Boykin become trusted in this offense. He's got the speed to do it. He's got the long speed. A point has been made to me often that he has more long speed than change of direction speed. So he's mostly build up and acceleration to eventual, good high top speed. I like that, I guess, but it would be better if he had the stop and go look where the defensive back really had to do more guessing about whether he was, going on a 9 route or coming on a comeback. That would be part of it. The other part of it is Lamar just has to trust Boykin more. And you see him make all sorts of throws to Andrews where the ball's up and he knows he can trust Andrews to go up and high point the ball and bring it down. And he doesn't trust Boykin in the same way. Some of that Boykin earned with his own inability to run routes properly and some of the drop issues he's had, which haven't been terrible, but he had a drop down the left sideline 2 games ago that would have been a great opportunity to gain trust, even though I think Huntley was in the game at the time when the ball was thrown. Or if it wasn't, it was already.
Yeah, I think it was like Huntley on like a back shoulder up the left
Exactly.
sideline.
Exactly. So he's got to gain the trust. Maybe he needs to work with Lamar more, but he also just needs to develop that secondary move. That would totally open up the left sideline and still maintain that great blocking threat who I want in the game for that purpose alone. It's one guy who keeps telling me, I don't want to hear about Miles Boykin as a run blocker anymore. Well, that's a huge presence that he has. I mean, come on. So anyway.
Like I'm sure you know about the forum on um that we used to post on with Filmstudy, paintball, and Cole Jackson, and like so we have a Miles Boykin thread, and like y- you talk about people don't want to hear you talk about Miles Boykin blocking. No one wants to hear me say anything about Miles Boykin on that thread.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I wish that he could get more targets, um, and I think that that's going to come with time um, and kind of like maybe in the off season repping with Lamar
Yes.
more on their own private workouts and just building a camaraderie between the two of them, like him and Hollywood have. And but like and it's weird, like in the regular reading through progressions, Lamar is more apt to throw to Hollywood and Andrews, but in like the scramble
Mhm.
drills, especially last year, he would. I'm not sure if Boykin would uncover or he seemed to have more of a connection to Boykin on ad lib plays than through the regular reading through the
Yeah,
progression.
I agree. And all three of his touchdowns last year were ad libs. But that is what Lamar brings to your red zone offense is you never have to throw the fade route anymore. It's all about Lamar moving around to find a direct line that he can throw the football on because he never has to really throw the ball over anybody to throw a touchdown in the red zone. And Boykin had 3 wonderful catches and all of them can be remembered. One was on a rub route against Cleveland. One was on a route where he made space back to the quarterback against the Jets. It was a really nice play by him. And the other one was that Miami game where he did a double back shoulder. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yep, like that play against the Jets, it's not quite a no look pass, but like Lamar was facing like one direction and didn't kind of turn his head to where Boykin was, so he kind of did that like the sidearm sling. That was a beautiful play.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Boykin has shown up more in the scramble drill these last few weeks. He's made a couple of grabs where he's been crossing all the way from left to right on the play. And that kind of gives him an advantage is that, he's the last to enter an area. So the area is often cleared out by guys moving to that right sideline as Lamar rolls right. So that's created space for him. I love that. I love that use for him. And I love that Lamar has trusted him enough that he throws on the run and feels like at least won't be intercepted under those circumstances.
And one last note on Boykin, like if he wants to get targets, then he needs to make the catch that like it was in the third quarter. It's off a play action. Um, Boykin's running like a over route or a crosser route, moving from right to left, and then Lamar gets flushed from the pocket, and then he kind of has like there's defenders all around him, and he kind of throws it up, and it's a little bit off target. It's a little bit high, but and Boykin extends, gets his hands on it, but doesn't bring it down. But those are the plays that Andrews
Mm-hmm.
makes, and that's a similar to the catch that not quite as dramatic, but similar to the catch that Gus Edwards had. And those are the plays that if he made those plays, then he would get more targets.
Yeah, that's a great point. I want to add something to that. I think it's kind of a bank account system with the quarterback in terms of trust. So Boykin doesn't have a big trust balance at this point. It may even be negative. I'm not putting him down or anything, but that's just the nature of where we are right now. Andrews has a trust balance from a number of those high point catches, but it's not like Andrews has had a great catch rate throughout his career so far. He's down in the low 60s in his career.
Yep.
That's low for a tight end. And, he dropped a touchdown pass in this last game, which was unfortunate. He dropped another pass that he maybe should have had. It's there. He's had other opportunities. It's just he doesn't let balls get intercepted either, which is important. And Lamar really trusts him to not do that. I wonder if there's any players that we really haven't talked about here. Are there any other players that you want to discuss during a time? We usually have a back and forth on this, but the skill position players are fairly limited, and we've talked so much scheme, we may not have any left. But is there anybody else you want to talk about?
I do want to talk about J.K. Dobbins. And then in general, I feel like J.K. Dobbins as a runner he has good vision. I think he showed good patience. Like he's not just running out there into like darkness. So I feel like J.K. Dobbins has very good start and stop, good acceleration, and good vision. And I'm not sure why it took them so long to get to him. I feel like he and Gus, they can really be the engine that drives this thing forward. Like I'm a huge J.K. Dobbins fan, and I want him to clean up his ball security and to tighten up his catching. But I feel like right now, as a runner, he can take us to where we want to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's got all you want. In addition to the qualities you named, the balance thing is he's unmatched by anybody but Ray Rice in Ravens history in terms of being able to keep his feet, go to the tripod, get right back up off it. Giovanni Bernard is another back I think of being able to do that. But really remarkable balance on the field. The other guy, who's the guy? Jacksonville back, JD Drew. Do I have it right? Who's the guy? The Jacksonville back who's great for a long time.
Fred Taylor.
Not Fred Taylor, the other guy after him.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
Maurice Jones-Drew. Okay, yeah, he was another guy who could go to the tripod pretty effectively and keep a run going. It is terrible. That's happening a lot to me recently that I cannot remember names of football players. I'm going to have to really figure out what's up with that. But anyway, we'll move on here. Let's talk a little mailbag then. Josh, what do we got?
All right, we've got a little bit of the mailbag. You can get your questions in using the hashtag Filmstudy mailbag. And you guys have been talking a bunch about Gus Edwards today, so let's start with him. Does it make sense to use the RFA tag on him next year?
There are not that many dollars total in the league next year. And one thing that I looked at when the Giants had this huge signing of Logan Ryan, who's a good player, certainly, but to sign him for 3 years, $30 million right now seems excessive to me. There are only about, I think, 17 million net dollars in the entire league, not per team, 17 million net dollars across the entire league. So a lot of players are going to have to get cut next year in the final year of contracts to make space. There'll have to be a lot of restructuring. They may have special borrowing rules for the team. And it means that every dollar is really going to be questioned, I think, team by team. The Ravens will be no different. They do have a little bit more cap than others, but they also have a lot more needs for that money. So I think if I had to guess, I'd say Gus gets signed for something less than the second round RFA tender amount.
All right. All right, Greg Romans.
Did you have anything to add to that, Ed? I'm sorry. Yeah, it looks like you might have something to say.
I'm not up on which of the tenders require like which draft pick. So I can't speak to that, but I know that I want to see the Ravens try and keep Gus Edwards on the team.
Right. So it would cost, I think, about $3.5 million normally to keep him. That's the rough range. I don't know if that'll go up or down with the COVID cap going down, but I think that's also more than the Ravens would probably be likely willing to pay. But I think there's a number in there. Maybe it's $2.5 million that Gus gets next year. That's very reasonable and is a value for both the Ravens and a good move for him. And he'll get a nice second contract somewhere after 2021.
And we're assuming Ingram will not be here
That's
next
correct.
year. So that'll make room as well. All right, Greg Roman, has his use of the outside counter, primarily with Dobbins lately, been the answer for teams flooding the box against Lamar?
It's an answer. I love it from that perspective. I mean, one thing you can do to really put stress on an 8-man box is to have you okay, Ed? There you go. All right. So one way to really put stress on an 8-man box is to pressure them by showing 3 possible outlets for the football. So if you go with the jet action they've been showing at a pony backfield, you can actually have a sidecar running back to the left of Lamar, jet action coming from right to left, and also the threat of Lamar running it right up the middle if he doesn't pass it. So it almost paralyzes even an 8-man box against the run because there are multiple possibilities of how you do it. And I think it really makes it a lot less effective. It also probably incensed the Ravens to run outside against that kind of a front.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that look that you're talking about with the outside counter, and if you have the sidecar back, and let's say that you're in a pony formation, and I think the Redskins, I mean, I don't know why I keep saying that. With the sidecar action, and you have that jet player coming through for the motion, the Ravens have done it where they do the mesh, and then the jet motion player is open for a screen. They haven't thrown that screen part of it yet, but like that's definitely something that they can tag to that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Is that play is blocked up a certain way, and this point is always made to me on the show by Coach Evans. Is their blocking keys are the same on that play, regardless of how they end up running it. So they have the same double teams, they have the same setup. They don't know behind them if a runner pass is occurring, if it's a true RPO play. If it's a we have 3 ways to run the football, they know. And there was actually one play in this game where the Ravens, Jackson, I think, actually crossed up the offensive line because it was a read option run. So it was a design run of some sort. Jackson ended up rolling right, and then he was trapped, so he threw the ball. Well, 2 linemen were already 5 yards downfield. Unfortunately, the Ravens didn't get flagged on the play. But it's the kind of thing where Jackson is being creative and may create a bad situation for himself.
All right. How do you fix Matt Skura and the bad snaps, if possible?
You want to start with that, Ed?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know if it's the yips or if he has a hand injury. So I wouldn't know what the solution is to fix him, but hopefully the solution is that he fixes it somewhere where he's not starting. I'm not trying to be harsh about that. I'm just saying, like, I feel like until he gets that fixed, it's always going to be a liability where a bad snap can change the course of a game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's too much of a liability for the Ravens to really allow it to be. And that's why I really don't believe Skura will start at center this next game. I think it'll either be McCary if he's healthy or TCC. But yeah, I think you're right that they need to figure it out in the offseason, basically, at this point. This question just came up yesterday on the defensive pod as well. A lot of people interested in it, obviously. But
we discussed it after the show.
We did. Okay. Well,
it was not part of the show.
That's good. Then we're just saying this for the first time. Fantastic. So we've seen a lot of pitchers, especially when I was a kid, who would get either nail breaks or breaks in their finger or blisters that just would never heal up during a season. And in particular, those are dangerous for relievers who they're in, every second day. And Greg Olson is one I particularly remember, the Otter, who was a great reliever for the Orioles in the late 80s, early 90s. And he would constantly have blood on his pitching index finger and be wiping it all over his pants. And he had this big bloody mess all over his pants by the time he left a game. If that's what's happened to Skura, and there's just a continual need to do that, then if he can't be worked out with tape or a glove, he can't play the position until the thing is healed. And that'll probably be next year at this point. If it's the yips and he's turned into Steve Blass, if you remember who he was won the 7th game of the World Series against the 1971 Orioles, and then he couldn't find the plate again, basically in about a year or two after that. There have been other guys that we talked about who couldn't find the plate again after that. There's something mechanically that's going wrong. I think they can probably analyze it by doing a heavy video retraining. And I think Skura is a smart and dedicated guy who will get it corrected. The Ravens can't risk it happening this year.
So I did a little research on this yesterday after our discussion, because you don't hear about this in the NFL like you do baseball. And that was our post-show discussion. And I found there is a Dr. David Graham up in New York that the Jets sent a offensive line player to him in 2013. Won't say who the player is, but I'm sure some Jets fans could figure it out. And he uses a technique called brain spotting, where it's some type of psychology thing to figure out what's affecting it. Apparently, a lot of times with athletes, it's trauma off the field, like divorce or relationships with parents and stuff that ends up causing the yips. This says that this guy's blocking skills had gone from being a tractor to a turnstile, baffling everyone. He went and saw this doctor after 3 extended sessions with Dr. Gran. The offensive lineman went on to have his best season, and Gran never heard from him again.
That's good to hear. That's the same doctor who got Roger Clemens clucking like a chicken in the All-Star episode of The Simpsons that happened a long time ago. That's good. It's good to hear he's still working.
All right. Well, yeah, he's doing a little bit better work, and maybe the Ravens can get a hold of him. All right, looking ahead past this week, final question. Who do you want the Ravens to face, assuming they win this weekend and get into the playoffs?
You go first, Ed. I've answered this question a bunch of times already.
So what the choices would be what? The
Steelers, Colts,
Titans. And there's one more. Steelers, Colts, Titans, and not the Chiefs, Bills.
Not the Bills. So I definitely want to face them. I would love from the hubris in me wants to face the Titans and smash them. That's what I would. But schematically and how we match up, I think I'll take the Colts or the Steelers because the Steelers defense I don't think has a chance to. I don't think they match up well with our offense. So I think that, and then plus it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. So I would go with the Steelers. And plus, it's a rival.
Sure. For me, Colts, Steelers, Titans, Bills. Colts because they really don't have their tackle situation worked out. I think the Ravens could make use of that against Phillip Rivers, even though Phillip Rivers gets the ball out quickly. They're also undersized, and I don't think they could stand up to the running game. They kind of showed their kryptonite, or we showed them their kryptonite during that second half with a lot of exactly what Lamar is doing right now. The Steelers because I think they figured out everything the Steelers can do offensively, including a 4 wide receiver set. And I think the Ravens will be able to defend it by playoff time. If they're not able to defend it because they don't have enough cornerbacks, shame on Eric DeCosta and the Ravens organization for not getting it fixed in time. The Titans will be number 3. I don't really want to play them because of some revenge thing. They're big up front. They can give the Ravens problems, but they have a very poor general defense that I think the Ravens could exploit. The Bills I'm most concerned about, and not too much of that is the Bills playing because I think the Ravens can run right over the Bills the way they can run over a lot of other teams. It's how weather might impact the game. I'm most concerned about how that would take away defending a lot of the field that Lamar Jackson can threaten. And it would also hurt the Bills offense, but I think it might hurt the Ravens offense more.
All right. And of course, there's lots of talk after the Steelers had that losing streak that it was the Ravens in that COVID game that exposed the Steelers. So, all right, Ed, anything we can promote for you?
No, I'm not on anything right now. I'm just basically on Russell Street Report Forum, just posting for fun. So no plugs here.
Loved having you on, Ed. Great guest. Lots of deep insight. I really appreciate having you. We'll love to have you again, and we'll make sure we get you back at least next year for an episode. Let's do that, and hopefully during the off season, if you got a chance for a short or two, let's work to make that happen.
Oh, definitely. I thank you for having me on. Thanks, Josh. Awesome show.
All right, and Ken, we've got lots of stuff over at filmstudybaltimore.com, all the normal stuff, articles, podcasts coming up, and more.
I want to talk to people specifically about the new gallery items from Brent Dawson out there. Some great graphs on Lamar Jackson, on the breakdown visually of ample time and space, ball out quick, and pressure events that you can see much better on a game-by-game basis when you see it. So you hear me talk about it, and you're like, what's a normal number for that? I don't know. Well, this will show you what a normal number has been through the season and kind of how it's trended, and how remarkable that Giants game was, in particular for the defense. But he provided those graphs, and we're going to do a lot more, including a video show this off season that will look at various visualizations and hopefully give people insight into what information they can glean from them.
Okay. Look forward to that.
All right. And guys, there's lots of podcasts out there. Every day there's a new podcast out. So what really helps is if you guys share and go on over to your Apple's podcast app and rate the show 5 stars, type a little review. That really, really helps new people find the show. And Raven Chris did that recently. He said, this is the best Ravens podcast and analysis. Ken and his guests provide the best and most articulate, fact-based analysis of any forum I have experienced. I anxiously await each podcast. Keep up the great work. I don't know how you find the time to perform the analysis you provide. The Ravens should consider hiring
Ken's mother, right?
So thank you for that review. And reviews like that help out the show a lot. So please head on over and do that.
I'm just kidding. Ravens Chris, really appreciate the effort for you to do that. Thanks again, Ed, for joining us on the show. And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.
Professional painters know waiting between coats for trim, doors, and cabinets to dry is time out of your day and money out of your pocket. Bare Premium Cabinet and Trim Enamel from the Home Depot lets you finish faster. With excellent flow and leveling, it dries to the touch in 1 hour, and less dry time means less downtime. Bare Premium Cabinet and Trim Enamel, just $39.98 a gallon, and that's before the Pro Extra discount, only at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Available in-store and online.